A 29-year-old man named Ben and a 76-year-old woman named Betty decided to marry, defying societal norms and sparking curious and judgmental reactions. The real reasons behind their unusual union would only come to light years later. On a calm and sunny afternoon, Anna and Betty, two friends, met as they usually did for their traditional afternoon tea. The cozy apartment of Anna was filled with the delightful aroma of freshly brewed tea when an unexpected knock sounded at the door. Curious and somewhat surprised, Anna walked to the door and opened it, revealing the cheerful face of her 22-year-old grandson, Ben. His presence at that moment was as unexpected as it was exciting, as it had been a long time since Anna had seen him due to a falling out with her daughter, Ben's mother. "Ben, what a pleasure to see you here," Anna said, her voice full of warmth and affection. "Did you come to visit me?" she asked with a loving smile. Ben revealed the truth behind his unexpected visit. "Actually, Grandma, my mom kicked me out," he murmured, looking down. "I was wondering if I could stay here for a while." Betty, the other woman, noticing the tension and complexity of the family situation, discreetly stepped back, taking her leave to give them the privacy needed to resolve what had to be discussed. Anna looked at Ben with a mix of compassion and concern as he confided in her about the events that led to his expulsion from home. "Sweetheart, what exactly made your mother take such a drastic step?" she asked. Ben sighed, a cloud of frustration hanging over his young shoulders. "You know how it is, Grandma. My mom seems to find a reason to argue with me about everything. I've been jobless for a while, and she wants me to contribute financially to the house. Plus, I had a huge fight with her new boyfriend." Anna nodded, understanding the complexity of the situation. "Ben, I understand you're going through a tough time, but being financially responsible is part of growing up. And regarding the fight with your mom's boyfriend, sometimes it's hard for parents to see their children in conflict with their partners." But before she could finish, Ben interrupted, his voice filled with resentment. "So you're on her side too, against me?" Anna shook her head sadly. "No, my dear. I just want to help resolve this. You can stay here as long as you need. We'll work through this together." In the days that followed, Anna observed firsthand why Ben had been expelled from his mother's home. Despite being unemployed, he seemed to show little interest in finding a new job. Nights turned into mornings as he immersed himself in video games, waking up only when the sun was already high in the sky, completely ignoring any domestic responsibilities like tidying his own room. Betty, always attentive to the situation, shared her concerns with Anna. "Anna, I know you want to keep the peace with your grandson, but the situation is getting out of hand. He needs to mature and take on responsibilities. You can't let this behavior continue in your house," she advised, her voice filled with concern for her friend. Anna took a deep breath, gathering the necessary courage to address the delicate topic with her grandson. "Ben, I understand you came here because you had nowhere else to go, and I'm here to help. However, the problem is that you haven't been doing your part, and I've noticed you're taking advantage of my generosity. It wouldn't be fair for me to let this continue. Starting tomorrow, this house will have rules. Also, I've spoken to a friend who owns a repair shop, and he's willing to offer you a job." Ben didn't respond immediately, retreating silently to his room, leaving Anna with a mix of worry and hope. The next morning, Anna woke up anxious to see how Ben would react to the new circumstances. To her surprise and relief, she found him already up in the kitchen early in the morning. "Grandma, I thought a lot last night about everything you said. I realized my attitudes were wrong. Where exactly is your friend's shop?" Ben asked, a sincere smile lighting up his face as he addressed his grandmother. As the days went by, Ben began to reflect the changes occurring within him, influenced by the peaceful and loving environment of his grandmother Anna's home. He gradually transformed, becoming a reflection of the serenity surrounding him. His interest in the repair trade started to blossom, and he dedicated himself wholeheartedly to his work, gaining his boss's trust and demonstrating promising talent. At home, Ben revealed himself to be a loving and quiet young man, always taking the time to share tea with his grandmother and her friend Betty after work. The captivating stories told by the two elderly ladies inspired Ben. However, life is full of ups and downs. A devastating storm struck Ben's life when his grandmother, his haven of peace, suddenly suffered a stroke, plunging him into a dark pit of distress and pain. In recent years, she had been his guide, his source of light in the darkest moments. Nevertheless, Betty, a longtime friend of his grandmother and a close neighbor, noticed the profound sadness weighing on Ben. She took on the role of mentor and confidant, always inviting him to comforting meals and encouraging him in his endeavors, filling the void left by his grandmother's passing. Although Ben still felt immense grief for his grandmother, Betty's constant presence and unwavering support provided the necessary comfort to heal his broken heart. Over the years, he maintained the ritual that once included his grandmother, the afternoon tea. One ordinary day after work, Ben headed to Betty's apartment, his neighbor and trusted friend. However, upon knocking at the door, there was no response. This was unusual, as Betty never failed to communicate if she couldn't attend the afternoon tea. Feeling a sense of unease, Ben used the spare key he kept with him and entered the old lady's apartment. His heart sank when he found Betty on the floor in the kitchen, a cut on her forehead revealing the incident. "I was just cleaning the floor and slipped. It's nothing, don't worry," Betty tried to minimize after returning from the hospital. Ben spent the night on the couch at his elderly friend's place. "I'll stay here if you need me. Just call," he said, showing his willingness to help. The next morning, Betty's doorbell rang, waking Ben. He opened the door to find a distinguished and imposing man standing before him. It was the old lady's son. Aware of the need for privacy, Ben decided to leave so they could talk in private. About 15 minutes later, Ben heard the door slam and Betty's son left. "Is everything okay, Betty? Your son has left?" Ben asked, showing concern for his friend's well-being. The sadness in Betty's eyes revealed the anguish she carried. "He's gone. He learned about my accident yesterday, but instead of worrying about me, he was more concerned that I might become a burden if he had to take care of me. I told him I was fine, but he thinks I can no longer take care of myself. He mentioned that if I don't agree to move into a nursing home, he'll start legal proceedings to declare me incompetent and have me committed against my will," Betty confided, revealing her son's insensitivity and lack of care. "Ben, you know me. You know I'm fine. It was just a slip," insisted Betty. Ben nodded, understanding. Betty was a dear figure in his life, and the thought of her being pressured and mistreated by her own son made him deeply sad. Suddenly, Betty's face lit up as if a brilliant idea had sprung to her mind. "Ben, would you marry me? That way, you would be my legal guardian and not my son," she proposed, surprising Ben, who widened his eyes at the unexpected suggestion. "Don't worry, it would just be so my son can't interfere in my life and I can decide my own future," reassured the old lady, noticing Ben's surprise and explaining her reasons with comforting serenity. Ben thought for a moment, breaking the tense silence between them. "Very well, Betty, I accept. At least if someone finds out, they won't think it's for financial gain. After all, we both live in this same building in small apartments," he said, a soft smile playing on his lips as he sought to bring a bit of lightness to the situation with a touch of humor. And so it was. Betty, a 76-year-old woman, and Ben, a 29-year-old man, went ahead with the unusual plan. When they formalized their union with the relevant authority, they faced suspicious glances and had to repeatedly reassure everyone that everything was in order before it was all resolved by the end of the day. After overcoming the bureaucratic hurdles, the two decided to celebrate in the best way they knew, with a nice afternoon tea. When the old lady's son discovered the marriage, he caused a scene in front of the building where Ben and Betty lived, revealing their secret marriage, which was until then unknown to the neighbors. Everyone started looking at Ben differently, as if he was taking advantage of the old lady's kindness. Ben and Betty knew the truth and didn't care about others' judgments. Over the years, Ben and Betty maintained their friendship and mutual care, even as the woman's health began to deteriorate due to old age. Ben didn't hesitate to bring his friend to live in his apartment and, despite financial difficulties, to hire a nurse to take care of her for 16 hours. Upon returning home, he personally cared for his friend, showing unwavering love and devotion. When Betty's life cycle finally ended, Ben felt a pain similar to what he had experienced the day he lost his own grandmother. Betty wasn't just a neighbor or a friend, she had become his family. At the funeral, Ben chose to stay away, aware of Betty's son's lack of sympathy for him. Months had passed since Betty's departure when Ben received a summons from a lawyer to settle the deceased's estate details since he was legally her spouse. Ben went to meet the lawyer, confident it was just bureaucratic matters. However, he was about to discover what Betty had planned. Ben didn't know, but the apartment building where he lived was actually owned by Betty. In a gesture of deep gratitude and love, she had left the building to Ben in her will. Ben had always assumed that, like him, Betty was simply a tenant in one of the building's apartments. The idea that he now owned the entire building was completely unexpected and shocking. Ben was indeed rewarded for his selfless care. Although the reward might seem material, his generosity and dedication to caring for Betty were not motivated by material gain but by a desire to help and care for someone he considered family. But the real surprise came when Ben discovered a letter Betty had left behind. It revealed that Betty was actually his estranged great-aunt, who had chosen to remain anonymous to observe Ben's character and resilience. The inheritance was not just a reward but a reconnection with a lost family lineage. If you enjoyed the story, hit the like button to support us. On your screen now is another emotional story you would enjoy.